friends in just a moment. We are going to begin the service for Mrs. Diane Chodash. I ask if you have any noise making or cellular device, please turn it into the silent mode. Officiating today's service will be Cantor Stephen Storer, Congregation Beth Shalom. Thank you.
We have several customs to fulfill, as well as beautiful words of eulogy to share for the service today. The first custom that I partook in, which maybe you saw me doing, was sprinkling some earth upon the top of the casket, which is a long-standing tradition. It's earth from Har HaZeitim, a place called the Mount of Olives, which is in Israel, and a sacred burial site. And we try to add some earth from Israel into each and every Jewish grave, so that we can connect the person's soul to God through prayer, but their physical being to come in contact with part of our homeland, even when most of us will choose not to be buried in our homeland. But it's another way of paying respect and honor to someone who lived a proud Jewish life. Vayoshav ha'afar al ha'aretz kishahaya. Tradition says the dust does return back into God's earth. V'haruach tashuv el ha'elohim asher netana. But we hold into our hearts the belief that the Spirit does not dwell there within, but lives in the heavens above. The second tradition I want to participate with some of the family members is the cutting of Kriya. It's somewhat redundant. The word Kriya means cutting, and it refers to the item that some of the family members, her sons and her brother, are wearing as a sign of loss. It doesn't mean the rest of the family is not suffering and mourning as well, but tradition says should you lose a child, a spouse, a sibling, a parent, that you wear a ribbon. And the distinction is that if your parent passes, you wear it over your left side as a sign of honoring thy father and thy mother, one of the holiest of the commandments, and as a sibling you wear one as well, but on the other side, on the right side, rather than near your heart. So I'm going to ask you, if you're comfortable, just standing for a moment. Other family can join you if they want to stand. And we're going to say a blessing, thanking God for life itself, the miracle of life, the sweetness of life, the love we have learned to share in life, and even at the close of life. We praise God for the mystery of this thing we call life. Say the blessing with me, please. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam, tricky part, Dayan Ha'emet, the judge of truth. God gives, God takes, and yet we hold on to our faith and we thank God for life. You can put a tear in that ribbon. If it's difficult, you can have your loved one next to you do it for you. Barry, I can help you if you need any help. Just from the bottom, sometimes it's from the side. Sometimes it gets a little tricky and it's easier from the side. Okay, you can be seated. There's another paragraph that's meant to be read at this sacred moment. It's a little bit longer in Hebrew, so I'm going to ask you to take the moment, rather than trying to decipher what it is I'm saying, to focus on the 23rd Psalm that's in the pamphlet that was provided for you, and we'll read that together in just a minute. הצור תמים פועלו כי חוד רחב משפט, אל אמון אבינו ואל צדיק וישר הוא. הצור תמים בכל פועל, מיום עולמה תפעל, שליט ממט ומעל, ממית ומחיה מורד שלוויה. צדיק בחוד רחב, הצור תמים מרח אפיים ומלא רחמים. חמל נא וחוס נא לאבות ובנים, כי לך אדון הסליחות והרחמים. אדם מבן שנה יהיה, או 1000 שנים יחיה, מה יתרון לו כלא יהיה, ברוך דיין האמת, ממית ומחיה. ידענו אדוני כי צדק משפטך, תסתך בדברך ותזכה בשופטיך, ואין להרע לך מידת שופטיך, צדיק אדוני ישר משפטך. גדול עצה ורב הלליה, אשר נקה בכוחות על כל דרכי בני אדם, לתת לאיש כדרכיו וכפרים על עליו להגיד, כי אשר אדוני צורי ועליו לטבו, אדוני נתן ואדוני לקח, כי שם אדוני מבורך, והוא רחום יכפר עוון ולא ישחית, והרבה להשיב אפו ולא יאיר כוחמתו. A general translation of that prayer is to say that God is righteous, the same blessing that you said. And where a person live a very short life or be blessed with long years, times just kind of not enough. Sometimes you just want more. Sometimes a person is ill enough that we kind of hope that they may pass and put them out of their anguish and pain. And yet when it happens, you're like, I didn't want that to happen. I just want them around. So we acknowledge that we are confused by the cycle of life and death, and that we have to put our hope in faith and in God, even though God's judgments trouble us during our lifetimes, and we have doubts in, is there a God, and why would a God allow A, B, or C to happen that we've witnessed in the world. Jewish tradition says we are asirei tikva, we're prisoners of hope. We still hope that there's goodness and there's God and there's purpose, and goodness is rewarded with goodness in this earth, even when we see things to the contrary. So we accept our lot, we accept our loss, and you hold on to the love. You hold on to the love. Read with me the English reading of the 23rd Psalm, which I believe most people are probably familiar with, no matter your faith. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures, and leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house. So that valley of the shadow of death could be the sadness that you feel, it could be the gloom of the sky and the feelings that you have pervading. It could have been the illness that Diane had to persevere, the valley, the illness, the aging, the less than a state that she may have been in. But the poet says, we will walk through it. We'll get through it somehow. As a family, you'll hold on to each other, you'll hold hands, you'll sit side by side, and you'll get through it. You won't get over it. It's a parent, it's a mom, it's a sister of long, long years, and sweet relationship that I learned of from your extended family, Barry. But you'll learn. You don't get over, you get through. You get through it. Diane and Jean, well, that's the way I always thought of her. It was them, Diane and Jean. And I don't mean them in the same way current social thoughtfulness has introduced us to gender and pronoun sensitivities. She wasn't a them. She was a she, a her, as far as I know. But Diane wasn't Diane without Jean. They were truly a couple who did so much together. And with that theme and thought, Mark, I'd like you to offer your words of togetherness.
Together. They're together again. Mom was married to Dad for nearly 60 years, and over that time they cherished their love, and the two of them were always together. It all started at Purdue with Mom and Dad, and the relationship grew together, along with their beloved AA Pi group that followed them throughout their lives. Together, they raised our family with 3 boys, their firstborn Steve, their middle child Howard, and me, the baby, who, according to my older brothers, always was spoiled and got away with everything. Mom was proud of her 3 boys and was always there for us. Together, our family spent summers at Kelly Lake enjoying the simple life, filled with swimming, fishing, and a trip to the cheese factory. It was a magical place where Mom grew up herself, and she wanted to pass along the same wonderful experience she had to her children. Together, the family grew. While Mom loved her boys, she always talked about wanting a girl. And when Stephen married Nancy, and I then married Paula, Mom finally had her daughters, and she welcomed them into the family as if they were her own. Together, they became adoring grandparents, first with Perry and then Jacob. Mom and Dad loved them both dearly. And together, their hearts grew with the additions of Harrison, Lexi, and Sadie, and Mom added 2 more girls to the girls' side. Together, Mom and Dad cruised through life, literally, going on dozens of cruises throughout the Caribbean, the Mediterranean, and up to Alaska. They enjoyed those times together, and it was Mom that talked Dad into taking the entire family on a cruise to celebrate their 50th anniversary so we can all share in the joy of renewing their marriage together. Together, they shared the joy of seeing 2 grandkids get married, and now Mom had 2 more girls added to the family when Jake married Annabelle and Perry married Allie. Together started with 2, and now together the family had grown to 7 boys and 7 girls. Together, Mom and Dad endured some tough times over these past years, and yet they were always there for each other. Their love shined bright through thick and thin. Dad was always there by Mom's side, and Mom would do anything to be by Dad's side. Great-grandchildren brought Mom joy with Orion and Atlas, and yet her together was broken and not quite the same. They're together again, and they're together forever. And together we'll always have fun memories, and may their together always be in our hearts.
They were truly a couple, doing so many things together in their lives. They adored the theater at the Marriott. They adored their annual winter cruises. They enjoyed their Sunday morning lox and bagel traditional breakfast, where it was, I learned, they would subdivide the newspaper, Jean, the front page and business section, and Diane, the comics. True it is that Diane and Jean were not identical personalities, but their yin and yang relationship worked for them. She, the South Sider who rooted the Cubs, and Jean, the North Sider who rooted the White Sox. They have a loving relationship nonetheless for 60 years. We'll hear from their eldest, Stephen.
Not nearly as eloquent. Things my mom made me do. Thanks. She made me do chores. There was the tradition in our house. We had 3 sons, so we had 3 weeks, A, B, and C. And A week I took the garbage out, and B week I did this, and C week I did that. And the boys always fought, no, it's a B week, it's time for you to take out the garbage. But she made us do those chores every week. I don't know whether it was because she was trying to teach us something or whether she just wanted a clean house and didn't want to do it herself, but we did our chores. Cub Scouts. My mom was my den leader, and it's something that I carried with me, and I went through Boy Scouts, and I passed that on to my kids, and I still do it. It's scouting, and Mom would see me not too long ago, wearing my uniform, and she'd look at me and goes, "Haven't you grown up yet?" And I said, "No, not yet. Still working on it." Things she made me do. Driving. I'm not sure even Howard remembers this one, but he'll remember it. She took me for my first driving lesson. I'm not sure I had a permit yet, and took me out to Skokie Lagoons and in the Forest Preserve because, well, it's pretty safe there. She figured not too many people driving around, and got me driving in the big station wagon, and if you haven't driven a station wagon, it's your first car, it's a little difficult. Try parallel parking one of those things. So she made me do it. Get a job. She made me get a job. Literally. This is not figurative, she literally threw me in the car, took me to downtown Northbrook. There's a sign in the window. Look, it says help wanted. Took me inside to Little Louie's and said, this kid wants a job. This one right here, the one who's not saying anything, he needs a job. He said, do you want a job? And I'm like, fearful of Mom. Yeah. Can you move a broom? Well, let's see, it wasn't on my chore list, but probably. So, yeah. Things my mom made me do is get my first job, and I'm grateful because that job really set me up for life. Things my mom made me do. I'm a Cub fan. I can't help it. It's part of the blood. She took myself and my brothers on Tuesdays to Cub games. Why Tuesdays? Anybody remember? Ladies' Day, exactly. But she would take us to Cub games. Didn't matter if there was school on. It's May, it's a nice day. We're getting out of school to go to a Cub game. She made me a Cub fan, and it kept us close after all these years. I mean, visiting her the last couple of years, she'd be watching some silly show on TV. It's Law and Order, whatever. Mom, the Cub game's on. Well, she goes, turn on Channel 9. Mom, they haven't been on Channel 9 for lots of years. 202. That's the one, 202. And we'd turn on the game, and we'd spend some good quality time watching and complaining and remembering at least that she did live long enough to see a World Series, a victory. And I'll always be a Cub fan. So basically, thanks, Mom. Thanks, Mom, for making me do these things and for making me who I am.
Howard opted not to express himself through technology and try to make that all work, but he will be speaking if you tune into the Shiva. I believe you'll get to hear some of his personal thoughts as well. When it was that Jean passed, Diane had a very hard time finding solace. The COVID era made it all the more so difficult as she was separated from others who she loved. And while family was still around her, and family was everything to her, her number one love was Jean. And now reunited, there is some closure that kind of feels right. He recalled for me how they took everyone on that 50th anniversary wedding cruise. It was a time to renew their vows. As you share it, there was some emotional turmoil during that anticipated ceremony, and Diane barked, "I might not even sign the ketubah this time." Well, as you know, her bark was sometimes worse than her bite, and she signed, and the fairy tale continued. And that fairy tale began years and years ago. Family lore has it that they were to be introduced to one another when in high school. But Jean's neighbor, who went over to his home to invite him to come out to meet this young person, wasn't there. And later, when they did meet in college, they realized through some storytelling that they actually were meant to have met one another years ago. And the idea of finding one's beshert was finally concretized. Jean was the quieter peacemaker, and Diane, well, the truth teller. The baseball fan she was, she may as well have been an umpire because she always called things like she saw them. She had a gruff exterior at times and was known not to use her inner filter at times, but her intentions were always directed by love, such as the example of how she referred to the grandchildren as her brats. "But I love my brats," she would say. Jean and Diane found commonality in a number of things, but one highlighted characteristic that came through to me in our talking was their generosity to family and to community. Tzedakah. Tzedakah was a central theme in their home. They gave to the Springfield Jewish Federation as well as to the Chodash Bernsen Fund. They were strong supporters of Israel bonds, and they were honored for such at Congregation Beth Shalom one year. She was active in our sisterhood, the valued volunteer in 1992. She worked at the gift shop and contributed to the congregation monthly bulletin. She loved Beth Shalom, and we loved Diane. Their generosity extended to you, family, I am sure, and they would try to help provide for you the best they could. Some of that spirit of generosity was shown in how they hosted for family meals and holidays, and how Diane loved to cook and share her home with you. She shared her creativity with you as well, by needle-pointing Tullis bags for the grandchildren, and by sewing blankets for many of you. When it came to family events such as bar and bat mitzvahs and weddings, it was Diane who made the centerpieces, who made the candies, who painted the flower pots, and even for the cruise that you spoke about, she created family t-shirts. Always giving. She shared her love as well by being the first to celebrate each and every one of you, by being the first on the dance floor at any family celebration. Jean was proud that Diane was home building the family and caring for the children, Stephen, Howard, Mark, who would affectionately come to be known as Mark, my baby, Howard, my doctor, Stephen, the father of my first grandchildren. The blessing of Nancy and Paula into her life was apparent as well. And then to be crowned grandma with Perry and Allison, Jacob and Annabelle, Harrison, Lexi and Sadie, and the dividends, may I say, of her star and her sky, the Orion and Atlas of her life. She cherished her relationship with her sister-in-law, Susan, and Bob, and being an aunt to their children along with family members. She maintained as dear friends with cousins, I believe it's cousins Elaine and Phyllis. Her relationship stayed strong since her earliest days when Paul and Ruth brought in her little brother, Barry, into her life. And then also when you married Barbara and had your family. Her little brother, you, Barry, would enjoy a spirited relationship, I was told, with your sister until the very end. It was shared with me that you would enjoy playfully bickering with one another about the Cubs. When they were winning, they were your Cubs. When they were losing, they were her Cubs. Your nephews boasted to me about how only you could make her giggle up until the very end. Family was always central to her. She loved and respected through their lives Mother Ruth and her father Paul. Her mom, as did Jean's mother, lived long years, and they both were devoted and caring children for all of those decades. That was one of the reasons you explained of why they never wanted to move away from Chicago or buy a second home in a warmer climate. They wanted to be here to be able to care for their parents, and once they had children and you had families, they wanted to be nowhere else but close to you. She was blessed to be surrounded by family up into the end and was able to get to see great-grandchildren over this past summer as well. Nancy was the constant medical advocate for Diane this last period of time, and she has personal words to offer too. Please.
It's amazing how the sun just came out. He just loves the sun. Okay. So I've known Mom, always called her Mom, for more than half my life. It took me a while to get her. She, as you all know, could be a little gruff at times with her words and her actions. But I soon learned that she was one of the most generous persons I know, and her way of showing love was that gruffness. There were so many times that I will cherish when she let me know exactly how much she cared for me and for the family, and that I was an important person in her life. For example, as you all know, Steve can be gruff at times too. And when Steve and I would be over by his parents and Steve would show a little gruffness toward me, she would yell at Steve to stop and to stop doing that, and then she would tell me that she would keep me over him. She loved doing the holidays at her place. She loved cooking for her family and having everyone there. She and I share that. That family is everything. One time her back went out right before a holiday. She was supposed to have it. And so I had to make everything and bring it over there. And I think that may have been the first time I had to make gefilte fish. She had given me a recipe, and I was looking up to see how to do it. I was so afraid that I would screw it up and people would get sick or it would just be awful. And so when we were sitting there for dinner, I felt like I was on Chopped, waiting for her to take the first bite. And then I got the approval it was good. And I felt just like how our grandson, Atlas, feels when he does something good. He yells out, "I did it! I did it!" As the health of both mom and dad declined, I became their healthcare advocate, making sure that everything they needed was done, and was done right, and that nothing was missed. Whether it was doing their medications or calling doctors or going to appointments, you name it, I would do anything for them. And I'd want to make sure that they were getting the best care possible. And I'm honored to do that. Some people would think it was a chore. It's my family. And I was so grateful that I had the chance to do it. There were many times that Mom maybe was not happy with some of the decisions of taking away some of her independence for her safety. But then she got it. And I knew she appreciated what I did for her was from love. She trusted me with her care and to let me help. Steve visited, and when Steve would visit her and I wasn't there, she would always ask Steve about me, sometimes 10 times, if I was okay. She loved me too. There was not one day that went by when I saw her or spoke to her that I wouldn't let her know that I loved her. I wish both Mom and Dad were here, of course, but what gives me and our family comfort is knowing that Mom is at peace now and that she's with the love of her life. We will all be fine, and I promise to keep up family traditions and to remind everyone that family is everything.
Howard had noted that as a mom, Diane was a dutiful Florence Nightingale, concerned about their every cough. Should I cough, he said, in the middle of the night, Mom was right there. If I needed her in the morning to make me breakfast, well, that was a different story. Mom liked to sleep in, he said. Diane loved the attention her son showered upon her. However, should you perchance miss a day of calling, or God help you, more than a week, you might be greeted with this exchange the next time you called. The phone would ring. Who is this? It's Stephen. Silence. Your son? Oh, I have a son, Stephen. Howard made the point that if he called and his dad picked up, Jean would announce to Diane, "It's Howard, you want to talk?" And she might say no if she were busy, but later that week she would ask why he hadn't been calling her. No matter the shtick she would give you, you knew that if you scratched her back, she'd scratch yours. As well, her calls always ended with, "I love you." Diane's focus was being a mom. Though she ventured out into the workplace a few times and had some periodic employment, she truly felt her place was as a wife to her husband and a mother to her children. In some free time, you said she had a penchant for reading. She preferred suspense novels, spy and mysteries in particular. And sci-fi wasn't out of the realm of her curiosity. As you said, she was a Star Trek fan from early on. Speaking of earlier days, family wishes to note the close relationship she maintained with Elaine and Phyllis, and how she retained a fondness for her Purdue College friends, that circle of friends since her graduation, having earned her degree there in chemistry at the time. Her loyalty to Purdue football never waned, nor did her fondness for her AE Pi friends, with whom she stayed in close touch and even traveled quite a bit over the many years. The apples of her eye, however, are the generations of her family who enjoyed picking the apples out of their backyard. And we're going to hear from, I believe, Jake and Perry and maybe other grandchildren, or if you'd just like to come up and stand with your cousins, you're welcome to come.
Hi, I'm Jake. I had something I was going to think about saying, and then other people brought up what is grandma, and she really is everything that everyone's spoken about. I would like to say, though, perhaps it's just being a grandchild. Grandma, she never made me do anything. If there was something that needed to be done that I probably should have done, she'd make Dad do it. She was never mean to me. If she was mad at something I did, she deflected and was mad at Grandpa for not stopping me from doing something that I had full control of not doing. And it's that love that as a grandchild I always felt, and we all felt. I think we're lucky, all five of us, that we each were able to build our own memories with Grandma, just from our age. We weren't so close in age that our relationships were of one, where we would only see her on Sundays as one group of grandchildren. We each were able to build our own individual memories with her and with Grandpa. And I think it's a blessing, as when someone passes away, you start going through the memories that you've had with that person, like reading a book. You start at chapter 1 from as young as possible, and you build towards the end. And as the grandchildren, we all came together, we all shared different memories that we had. And I think that's more of a blessing than anything else, that we were each able to build this relationship, and we were each able to build our own relationship. This past a couple of weeks ago, I was in Michigan, and we were at an orchard. And all I could talk about as I was picking apples is how my grandmother had an apple tree in her house in Northbrook, and we would go and we would pick apples. And Annabelle was just like, I know, I heard the story 45 times. And it didn't matter, because I was going to say it the 46th time, because to me, it's something that I just always remember, is going up picking the apples with Grandpa. He created this tool to pick the apples. It was very special because we were all this tall. And then we'd get all these apples that no one could ever eat. And we would bring them inside, and Grandma was ready to make apple pies. Too many apple pies than anyone else would eat. But we had so many apples, and we couldn't get rid of the apples because that would just be a waste. And Grandma would never waste that. So we'd always have apple pie and applesauce for this one day when we had our apple picking. And I had talked with Perry, and he had the same memory. And then I had talked with Harrison, and the same memory. Because even though we did it at different times and all that, it was just something that we did together as a family, grandparent to grandchild, and it was a memory that I can never get rid of. One time I remember being afraid of Grandma I think I'd gotten engaged to Annabelle, and Grandma wanted to make a blanket. And when Grandma made a blanket for me and Perry, they were Illinois blankets. And that was okay, but Annabelle went to Michigan. And I just wasn't sure the feeling that would do. And she was like, Michigan, that's fine. If it was Indiana, absolutely not. And it's that sense of humor that Grandma had that it just makes everyone smile. It's that type of sense of humor that it was honest. And it's something that I will always remember. And the last thing that I'll just say is, we talk about how Grandma was a great grandmother, a sister, an aunt, a great aunt. She was all of these things. But first, she was a Cubs fan. And she never understood the concept of at 2:30 p.m., people may be working and not watching the Cubs game. And someone may be afraid if they had 18 missed calls from their grandmother, something was wrong. But actually, the Cubs were just losing. And she just wanted to tell someone about it. And every time I saw my phone, I was like, oh my God, Grandma's calling for the 5th time and it's the middle of a work day. I need to call her back. The second I called, she'll be like, do you watch the Cubs game? And at the beginning, I was like, no, it's work. I can't do that. But by the end, I always would be like, this might happen. I'm going to watch. I'll at least know what's going on in the Cubs game so that if she calls, I want to be able to have that conversation with her. And it's something that I'll always remember. And she's put an imprint on all of our lives. And I'm happy here right now, obviously with everything that's going on, we can still have a great showing to remember her and who she was and all of her wonderful intricacies. Yes.
I guess I'll say something kind of quickly. So one of my favorite memories. So as the first grandchild, of course, she was expecting to have a great grandchild as quickly as possible. So when I went to college, every conversation I had with her is, when are you getting married? When am I having a great grandchild? I'm like, well, you have to wait. I'm in college. I'm not getting married right now. And just every single conversation, and it was just constant until finally I met Allie and we ended up getting married. And then she was so excited, I have a wife now. It's every conversation. When am I having a great grandchild? Every single time I would call, every time I would visit. And a few years ago when I had my first kid, she was so excited. And I flew out here. She got to see her great grandchild and hold him, and I've never seen her so happy to have a chance to hold her great grandchild. And the last couple of years were tough because COVID, we couldn't fly out. And I had another kid a year ago. And so luckily this summer we made the effort to fly out in August so that she had a chance to meet her youngest great-grandchild and have a chance to hold him and see him and interact with both of them. And I'm so grateful that we were able to come a month ago to actually see her and give her that joy of seeing her family, seeing her great-grandchildren. And it's a great memory that I will just cherish forever, seeing how happy she was with my kids. So, thanks.
Diane was a woman with a very loving heart that was covered at times with a little tougher exterior. But I think from all the words you heard today, we understand that that love was apparent in so many ways. So I suggest when you get home later that you raise a glass of Prosecco and you toast her example of family and devotion and allegiance. And later this week, though, in a different way, in a spiritual way, don't forget to call your mother. May her memory be a sweet blessing to those of you who knew and loved her so well. I'd like to offer a memorial prayer as we come to the close of our service, prior, of course, to the lowering of the casket. If you're comfortable to stand, please do so, and then we'll join in Kaddish as well. El maleh rachamim, shochem b'amromim, hameseh menucha, nechona tachat kanfei hashchina, במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת דינה בת פסח לב ורחליה שלחה לעולמה בגן עדן תהא מנוחתה, אנא בא לרחמים, הסתיריה בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור חיים את נשמתה. אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח משלום המשכבה, ונאמר Amen. Please join me in the Kaddish. Yitgada, Yitkadash, Shmei Rabbah, Ba'alma Divra Kirute, V'yamlich Malchute, V'chayechon, V'yomechon, V'chaye Decho Beit Yisrael, V'agala, V'zman Kariv, V'imru, Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah Mevarach, La'alam U'la'almei Almaya, Yeparach, V'yishtabach, V'yipa'ar, V'yitromam, V'yitnaseh. V'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shmei d'kudsha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran ba'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. We have just prayed that God accepts Diane's spirit, her soul, into the heavens above. As I shared with the family yesterday, tradition says that the spirit does not leave the vicinity of the body. It may leave the body, but it doesn't leave the vicinity of the body until they hear the family recite Kaddish. And now the soul knows that its journey along with the body is over and it can begin its ascent to heaven. It's a very sacred moment we're witnessing at this time. I want to offer a brief, pretty poem that I've heard while the gentlemen here assist us in the lowering of the casket, and then we'll participate in the burial. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there, for now I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints you see upon the snow. You can see me in the sunlight on ripened grain, and you can feel me in the gentle autumn's rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I can be the soft star that you gaze at night. So do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there, for my soul shall not die. Once the gentlemen place the vault cover on top of the vault, you'll be invited to come forward. Some family members will be given some of the flowers. Some of the family members will be given flowers to place into the grave along with some of the earth. Tradition would be that we do 3 measures of earth. 3 times you want to use the small shovel or the larger shovel, whatever is available to us, and then place the little shovel or the bigger shovel back into the mound of earth so the next person can voluntarily step forward and take on what is a true mitzvah, an act of kindness and goodness to show their respects to Diane. We like to consider it a blanket of earth, tucking Diane into her final bed, her final resting place. And it's a gentle, wonderful way to offer an expression of love to somebody who cannot possibly thank you or pay you back in any way. So if you choose to participate in that mitzvah, please remain with us. Otherwise, the ritual part of the service has been completed. And then I would ask you not to turn this moment into an opportunity to socialize. There is a gathering together, I believe, for the family after. That's the time to comfort the mourners. This is a time to pay our respects to Diane.
As the cantor mentioned, there will be a shiva this evening on Zoom. That information is on our website. Memorial contributions to Diane's memory can be given to CJ Senior Life, Hadassah, or the Chodash Bernsen Health Education and Promotion Fund. That information, as well as a link to the shiva this evening at 7:30, is at ChicagoJewishFunerals.com. For those of you who have been standing, we have some water that we'll be passing out in just a few minutes. Thank you so much. On behalf of the family and all of those who have come from far away, to thank the over 43 different screens that have shared on Zoom so far. We thank you for joining us. Thank you.
The other thing that might not need to be said but should be said and will be said is please watch your footing around the grave. Please leave enough room between people that we don't actually trip on another person's foot or something. Now and again we've had a mishap and it's not pretty. So just take your time, be calm, be patient, and participate should you wish to.
Need one more?
Yes.
If you do choose to use the smaller pail of sand, there are small Dixie cups to use that you can use to scoop out the sand and then discard it in the waste paper basket if you want to use the larger shovel for process. Tradition is 3 shovels as a reminder. Some of you who wish can walk around this way and use the other side of the thing, or that way.
See? Now you know how we ended up working with that.
If anybody's going to use the smaller pail, you're welcome to come over to the side here. Sometimes it's easier to scoop it off the board itself. Go all the way down to the board. Put it.
There's a small pail if anybody wants to use some of these Cub Scouts.
Oh my God, I'm so weak.
Let it fall. Let it sit.
Yeah, nice.
It's her favorite, it's clay.
I clayed myself.
Go for it.
There's a little more. We'll finish now.
One of the few I got. Because you didn't.
There's got to be a quick handoff on that shovel.
This is how I remember hearing it. Yeah.
Very familiar stand.
Very, yeah.
He knows I put the dirt.
I've seen it before. Maybe in the shovel thing from you. I've seen it a little bit.
I feel home in a dirt pile. And home in the mud. This too. It's another thing. It never ends.
They have a little hand sanitizer. If anybody wants a little hand sanitizer, a little spritz.
It makes sense. I bolded. At least in the words. Some words.
So the next question will be, do you want to remain? Does the gentleman bring the backhoe up here? And they help to pull the earth in until it's complete? Yeah. You're okay with that? Okay.
Yeah, I'm with him.
Siobhan, my dad, and let's see what we did.
I'll be terminating the service. Thank you.